Oh, there it is. Hello, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining me. Sorry for the late start. We had a little technical glitch here, but I want to say thank you for being here, and thank you for all the questions that have been sent in earlier today, and ones that you are going to send in now. Please rapid fire with this one. Send in your questions because I love being able to answer your questions. It may look like I'm in a different place than I usually am when I do these question and answer sessions. And that's true. I'm in the library test kitchen above Frontera Grill. And I am here because there's lots of stuff going on at my house, and I didn't think that it would be the right atmosphere this evening. Too much noise, too many things going on. So thank you all for joining me here in the library and test kitchen above Frontera Grill. Okay, so I'm going to start here with a few questions that have been sent in already. And the first one comes from Jeremy Gardner on Facebook. Some time ago, you mentioned that you were working on a book about tacos. When can we expect to see this book? Also, are there any plans for future seasons of Mexico, one plate at a time? The book is coming to an end. Those of you that follow me here on Facebook have been given all of this material. It is all of the taco manual material that I have released on on YouTube, and I will be thrilled to be able to give you that as a taco manual. As to Mexico, one plate at a time, I will say that we are not in production on that now. We did 12 seasons. I'm very, very honored to have been able to take you to so many places in Mexico, but we're giving that a rest right now while we focus a lot on YouTube. I know that the YouTube stuff is all procedural, and we are going to be adding in this next year a lot of more location stuff. That is a little bit harder for us to produce, but that is high on my list to be able to take you to places in Mexico, but to do it through YouTube. Next question up, our second one here. It comes from P_BUFFO. I'm going to say Buffo on Instagram. Would you ever lead a tour to Oaxaca to learn about the moles? If not, can you recommend someone? Okay, so I'm going to answer the second question first. The person that I recommend is in Teotitlán del Valle, and then another one that's out in the Etla Valley. The first one that I'm going to recommend is a woman named Reina, and Reina Reyna. She is in Teotitlán del Valle, the rug making village, and she does amazing cooking classes where you not only learn moles, but you learn how to do them in the most traditional way, which is to grind all of the ingredients on a metate. Cultural experience, delicious, delicious food. I've known Reina for a long, long time. She used to be an assistant when I would teach classes in Oaxaca, and man, she is the best. The second person that I'm going to tell you is Susana Trilling in the Etla Valley. And she has a place called Seasons of My Heart. And her classes are just exceptional. She has a wonderful teaching crew that will take you through all of the things there. I mean, there are so many people that are teaching cooking in Oaxaca. It's all great. But I will tell you, my top two would be Susana Trilling in Seasons of My Heart and Reina out in Teotitlán del Valle. Then the first one, would I ever lead a tour to Oaxaca? Oh man, I just need more hours in the day. I would love to take you all to Oaxaca. I really am only leading tours for our staff right now. And sorry about that, but maybe in the next few years we'll figure out how to do it. It would just bring me great joy. But right now, because of all of my responsibilities at the restaurants and then all of the responsibilities that I have to get you guys really, really well written recipes and keep a lively YouTube channel, I will say that right now I just don't have time to lead the tours to Oaxaca. I am going to go on to the third question here, which is Jane Chestnut on Facebook, who asks, can achiote paste be used in equal parts to replace achiote powder? No, it cannot. Okay. Achiote powder is just the ground annatto seed. Whereas achiote paste has garlic in it, it has vinegar, it has salt, it has a bunch of herbs and spices. So it is a fully seasoned paste that a good portion of is made from the achiote ground into it. They're very different things. Don't try to replace one with another. Oh, Michelin Maynard, hello on Instagram says, hi, Rick, frost is coming and I need to harvest my herbs. Ideas for preserving them. My way of preserving herbs really is to make them into a seasoning paste and keep that in a refrigerator. I do that by roasting garlic, pureeing that with the herbs and olive oil. And so roasted garlic peeled in the food processor or blender, then put your herbs in there, put in a good dash of olive oil, turn on the blender or the food processor and add oil until you have a thick paste. That stuff, if you top it off with oil, will keep for quite a while in your refrigerator, like months. But I left out one ingredient. You highly season it with salt. Salt is your preservative there. Absolutely no acid goes in there. So it's sort of like the beginnings of making a pesto, but no nuts, no cheese goes in there at all. But that seasoning, I mean, a lot of times I will tell you, if you've got cilantro, a lot of cilantro on your hands and you want to preserve it and not just waste it, I'll make it into that seasoning paste. Now, if you want to make it really Mexican tasting, then I roast some serrano chilies along with the garlic, and then I will add that to it so that it's a little bit spicy. But to tell you the truth, I have that stuff in my refrigerator made with half cilantro, half parsley, serrano chilies and garlic, olive oil. I have that always in my refrigerator. I love that stuff. And our last of the questions sent in ahead of time comes from Matt Dressen on Instagram, who says, I'm a beginner cook. How do I prevent dried chilies from dominating the dishes in which I use them? I'm not worried about the heat, just the balance. Okay, here's the deal. If you really want very integrated chili flavor, and I'm talking here about guajillo chilies, ancho chilies, pasilla chilies, those large ones that you use as part of your, or not part of, really the base of a sauce, then you always have to toast the dried chili, soak it. Don't use the soaking liquid unless it's not bitter. And then you blend those soaked chilies with other ingredients like roasted garlic and herbs and spices. Then you cook that mixture down. And this is, I can't emphasize this enough. And lots of people skip this step, but this is what will keep them from dominating the dish and instead integrating into the dish. You cook them in oil or a fresh rendered pork fat. You cook them down for quite a bit until they're the consistency of tomato paste. And in that cooking down, you have brought up sweetness and you have pushed away the natural astringency that is there, and you will have this base that is so round in flavor and beautiful. And if you want to add a little bit of extra spice, because ancho, guajillo, and pasillo are not that spicy, if you want to add a little spice, then toast a few arbol chiles with those big dried chilies that you're working with, and it'll give it a little bit more spice. But if you toast and soak and blend and strain and pure and then cook down, everything will be really, really beautiful. Okay, now I'm going to go to some of our current questions here. Carol Ann A says, I need to kick up my salsa roja. I'm not sure what kick up means there, but I'm going to just read into it that you want it to be richer, better, spicier. Maybe I'm reading too much in here. Okay. What should I do? I've watched you for years. I live in Edmond, Oklahoma. I grew up in Oklahoma City, so I know where Edmond is. So I will say roasting stuff is always a way to make the salsa better. So whether it's a tomato salsa or whether it's a tomatillo-based salsa, I always lean toward tomatillo. You will roast garlic, roast the chiles, and roast the tomatillos. If you want to make a really great salsa, then I would replace the serrano chilies or the jalapeno chilies with canned, just very simple here, canned chipotles, roasted tomatillos, roasted garlic, canned chipotles, blend all of that together. And man, you've got, I think, an absolutely delicious salsa that takes you almost no time and it's going to be really, really good. It may be your go-to forever. Okay, the next one is Jason Schoenman says, what's your favorite non-traditional slash fusion ingredient for Mexican food? Okay, so I would probably, a couple come to mind. Um, One of them is fish sauce. Well, I'm going to say three. Okay, so these are all going to go Asian because there's so much of a place for Asian flavors in Mexican food. So I'm going to say that the that fish sauce is number one. And if you haven't fallen in love with the magic that fish sauce can bring to a sauce, then I want to nudge you in that direction because a little bit of fish sauce, we're talking a couple tablespoons in another sauce that's destined for fish dish is going to just do work magic because fish sauce is all umami. Umami is that deliciousness factor. So put a little bit of it in a sauce that's destined for fish, and you've got something really great. To tell you the truth, I even use a little bit of fish sauce in things that are going to go for poultry because you don't taste fishiness if you just put a small amount, but what you do get is that boost of umami. Second thing I'll say is soy sauce can work real wonders. So let's go back to that salsa that I was talking about here a minute ago, which is roasted tomatillos, roasted garlic, canned chipotles. Okay, so just a teaspoon of soy sauce in that. Like in Mexico, a lot of people would use jugo magi, which is one of those flavor boosters, but it's not as natural as soy sauce. So I say in some cases, instead of using that jugo magi, that you could put just a teaspoon of soy sauce in something. And again, it'll add massive amounts of umami, salt, just delicious stuff. Third thing I'll say is fresh ginger. If you've never had guacamole with fresh ginger in it, or even a chopped tomato salsa, the one that typically in the United States is called pico de gallo, then put a little fresh ginger in there and it'll just be absolutely wonderful. Ginger is not uncommon. Well, ginger and soy sauce are not uncommon in Mexico at all. So I will say that don't feel like that you're doing weird fusion when you're putting them in a Mexican dish, because people that I know, especially in Mexico City, where those ingredients are really widely available, they use them all the time. So a little bit of fresh ginger, even in a mole, unbelievable. They do that in the state of Michoacan, and I learned that a long time ago, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. Okay, my next question here comes from Daphne Pierce. Can you freeze flour tortillas? Yes, you can. They don't last long, though. I will tell you that. I'm never really happy with them unless if you have a food saver, then here's my suggestion is that you put a piece of wax paper, parchment paper, deli paper, something between the tortillas, and then you put them in a bag and you pull the vacuum with a food saver because it will keep them from getting freezer burnt. So if you can do that, do that. Otherwise, put them in a plastic bag. You don't have to put the layering in there if you're not going to use a food saver or some kind of vacuum sealer. I just put my hands on them and I just press down, get as much air out of them as possible. Always use the heavier freezer bags, and it will protect your flour tortillas a long time. Like with anything, please go to the refrigerator to defrost. You would think that flour tortillas will be better done just at room temperature, but honestly, I think they're better if you just leave them for a few hours in the refrigerator. Unless you're in a big hurry, then leave them on the countertop. Okay, next question here. Pardon me. Um, Brian Nev says, "Hey Rick, do you have a favorite variety of tomato?" I certainly do, and so I like high acid tomatoes. And when you're in Oaxaca, there is the tomate criollo, and it is a very heavily lobed tomato. If you know anything about the classic tomatoes of Italy, it looks almost identical to a Costoluto Genovese, and I love both of those tomatoes because they're high acid tomatoes. They add so much brightness to a dish. In fact, the Zapotec pleated or tomate criollo from Oaxaca is the grandfather of the Costoluto Genovese in Italy, because people remember there were no tomatoes in Italy until after the explorers from the old world came to the new world, found them in Mexico, and took them back to Europe. So just imagine if that had never happened, what would Italian food be? Now, I like that particular tomato a lot. There's a wild tomato down in Chiapas, that Chiapas wild, and it's a very small tomato, and those are high acid as well, and just packed with flavor. You can buy seeds for those if you look at places that carry heirloom seeds. They usually sell them as Chiapas Wild or Matt's Wild. I don't know who Matt was, but Matt's Wild, I've grown those before. It's a big and unruly bush, but man, are those tomatoes really, really good. Our next question comes from Cesar Valderas. What is your favorite Mexican restaurant in Chicago that is not your own? Cesar, I'm really sorry. I never answered that question. I know most of the Mexican chefs in Chicago. Why would I single one out? They all have reasons I would go there. And I love the fact that Chicago has such diverse and super cool Mexican places. So, yeah, you've probably eaten at Carnitas Uruapan. You've probably been out to Birreria Zaragoza. You've probably tasted, oh, I'm not going to get the name of it right, the food from our Oaxacan place in Uptown that's so good. You've probably tasted, you walked along 18th Street in Pilsen and gotten some amazing tacos from all the taquerias that are along in there. It's just great. You've probably been to Cinco Rabanitos or his brother's place down in McKinley Park called Chile Torreado. There's just so many good places. And all I'm telling you is about my best friends. And but that's not all that Chicago has to offer. We have lots of great Mexican food, and I don't want to alienate anybody because you're going to find your favorite one, and that should suffice. Scott asks, we want to visit Yucatan and Oaxaca. Are these good and safe places to take cooking classes and enjoy regional cuisine? We love mole and achiote. Absolutely go. I will tell you that you will feel so utterly safe in both of those places. I will tell you, I feel much, maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but much safer in Oaxaca than I do in Chicago, just wandering around on the streets. So Oaxaca is a great pedestrian city. So you could, if you stay downtown, man, you are going to have a great time wandering the streets at all times of the day and night. It's a very, very safe city. Yucatan has the exact same reputation. It's a bit bigger of a city, and it doesn't have that pedestrian downtown. So I will say that it's not quite as friendly for roaming around. Though I spend many hours roaming the streets of Merida, Yucatan. Now there's several different Yucatan. Well, the Yucatan is the whole peninsula. It's divided into the three states, the three main states, which are Campeche, Yucatan, and Quintana Roo. And when you are in that, they call that whole thing Yucatan. But there is a state of Yucatan. The capital city of that is Merida. Now, you could lop off the entire Riviera Maya. I wouldn't want to do that because it's really beautiful and it's a great place for tourists to go. But there is so much less of Yucatecan cuisine in that area. Even if you're all inclusive, has a Mexican restaurant, just know that that restaurant probably will not represent the regional foods of the Yucatan in a way that you could get if you go to the capital city of Merida. So, my suggestion is you go and spend time in Merida and in the second largest city over there, which is Valladolid. Two great towns. I think you will love exploring those. Right in the middle of those towns is Chichen Itza, the great ruins of Chichen. And you'll definitely want to go there and explore those ruins, maybe go down to the ruins of Uxmal. I will tell you, there are some great things down around the ruins of Uxmal, including a chocolate museum, which should not be missed. It's sort of ethnobotanical chocolate museum outdoors, and so they tell you the whole ethnobotanical history of chocolate. Such a great place to be. Now, Batman William TTV asks, what is your favorite Mexican dessert or bread? Okay, well, those are really, really different. And so I don't know when you say bread if you're meaning wheat flour based bread, but the bread of Mexico, or the equivalent bread of Mexico, is always going to be corn tortillas. Now, up along the northern border, and I do a lot in the Baja Norte region, just south of San Diego. But through that whole northern region there, you're going to find a lot of people asking you, do you want flour or corn tortillas? But that's the place for flour tortillas. So, and they can be absolutely amazing. But the rest of Mexico, you could find people, if you said, do you have any flour tortillas? They would look at you like, why would we have flour tortillas? That's not part of our cuisine here. So keep that all in mind, that once you leave that border area, flour tortillas become much less common. And I once asked somebody when I was living in Mexico a long time ago, I asked them if they had ever heard of flour tortillas, and they said they had heard of them. That I was down in the state of Michoacan. They said that they had heard of flour tortillas, but they'd never seen one or eaten one. So that's how much, at least in the past, flour tortillas did not make it past the border region at all. So the bread of Mexico is corn tortillas, made in the classic way. They are made with, in the best places, they will be made with corn kernels that are nixtamalized, ground through stone grinders, and then made into the corn tortillas, baked right before you get them. And if it's an heirloom variety of corn, they will have a very distinctive flavor. They are never salted. Okay. Just like the bread of Tuscany, they are never salted. So you just have to get into that. And that's the reason that the food on your plate will be fully salted, because the bread you're going to eat with it, which is eaten in copious quantities in small towns especially, will not have any salt in them. Okay. In desserts, what was my favorite one? Gosh, maybe the next one that I eat. I don't know. What do I turn to the most? For a festive occasion, it would be a tres leches cake, though I'm really into a lot of modern varieties of that. Cuatro leches is my favorite right now, not the tres. So the tres are a whole milk, canned milk, evaporated milk, and sweetened condensed milk. Those are the three, but you add coconut milk to that, and I go crazy. I love that. So that could be a good thing. Flan is always a good traditional thing, but man, we're coming up to the holidays here, and I look so forward to buñuelos. On my YouTube channel, I have a video on how to make the really classic buñuelos in the style of the street vendors of Oaxaca. So I highly recommend that you check that out. Okay, our next one here is from Zachary Schneider. What citrus is in Coco's habanero salsa that makes it so good? Don't know cocoa, so I don't can't really answer that. Pardon me. I can't really answer that. But I don't know. I'm going to guess lime juice. I don't know. Helios F says, "What are your top 5 places to eat in Mexico?" Oh God, that is Shoko's. Oh, I just looked up over here and saw that Jacob, who's feeding me all these questions, wrote Coco's, not Shoko's. Okay, now I'm going to answer the question really. Okay, so the question about citrus in Choco's habanero salsa, it is just lime juice. So I answered the question right, but okay. So that is this like 3 or 4 ingredient salsa: roasted fresh habanero, lime juice, roasted garlic, salt. That's it. And to me, that is the best habanero salsa: roasted garlic and roasted uh, habaneros, and then season it with salt and lime juice, a little bit of water to give it the right consistency, and you've got it. Now I'm back to Helios' question about top 5 places to eat. Okay, so people, we have to just stop always looking for the ranking of everything, okay? Because what my top 5 would be would not be your top 5, okay? And then all we do is just like debate each other about should that be number 3 or that be number 5 or that shouldn't be on the list and all of that. I've got way too many good things to do in my life than to have that conversation. So I will tell you that I love so many different places in Mexico. When I go to Mexico City, I always love going to Contramar. Why do I like going there? The food is always consistent, it's always good, and the service is above reproach. Plus, it's just really fun. Okay, so if I'm going for a fine dining meal in Mexico City, then I'm probably going to go to Quintonil because I like the intimacy of the place and I like their menu. I feel like that it's very modern. It's on the 50 best list. Yes, all of those things. But I really like it. And so I would continue to go back there. Plus, the chef is a friend of mine, and I like that. I would say that there are, like, if I wanted to go eat, if a variety of things, then I would probably go to El Cardenal, downtown Mexico City. That one, there's 2 or 3 of them in Mexico City, but the downtown one, and have that Mexican breakfast there with the fresh baked conchas and the natas, that the sort of clotted cream that they make. And you put that onto the breads, the conchas, and so good. But the breakfast, very savory and robust and great. And then I might just go down the street to Cocuyos and have tacos de suadero. I love that. Or if it's nighttime, I might go to Vilcito and eat the tacos al pastor, because those are my favorites in that place. But probably before I would leave downtown, I would go by El Moro and have the churros there because I love those. So that's a really weird and eclectic mix of things, and they're all sort of stood the test of time, and I love them all. So I can't really answer that question, but I just did. Kylie G asks, other than onions and tomatoes, what additions do you like to add to, if any, to guacamole? Okay, so actually, my favorite guacamole is not made with tomatoes. It's made with roasted tomatillos, and so I make a kind of coarse salsa with roasted tomatillos, roasted garlic, roasted green chilies. The 3 things, but all of them roasted, fresh cilantro, blend that up, but make a coarse puree out of it, add that to mashed avocado. And man, I love that guacamole. That's my very favorite one. This time of year, if you want to kind of go out on a limb, beautiful fresh apples chopped up are just great in that one. I will say that if you want to really go out on a limb, half cilantro, half mint in that one is really good one. But for those of you that are total traditionalists that would never go away from from the tradition, just know that each region of Mexico has its own guacamole. And what they will call guacamole in Oaxaca is just mashed avocado with maybe a little garlic in it, salt, that done. And then in Guadalajara, it'll have the chopped up tomato usually in it. Mexico City loves the version with the tomatillos, like I just told you there. So you get a lot of different versions of it. So you have to figure out what's your favorite, and don't hesitate to mix it up from time to time. That's what I like to do. My favorite one to serve during the holidays is one that is seasoned with the roasted tomatillo, just like I told you, but I crush up a bunch of toasted walnuts and put that in there and serve it with pomegranate seeds on the top. That's a great, everybody always loves that one. Jason Headstand says, I've heard if you cook tomatillos at too high a temp, they can become bitter. Is this a thing? I don't know what that would mean, too high a temp. So in Mexico, there are the two camps of tomatillo cookers, okay? There's the roasters, mostly from southern Mexico. So they will do that as dry roasting. I always tell you to do it under a broiler and a toaster oven because that's really easy. But everybody in Mexico puts them out on a comal, onto a griddle, and they roast them there, turning them around until they're thoroughly cooked and blotchy black on the outside. But you really wouldn't know what your temp is there. I guess if you put it on too high a temp, you would just get burn on the outside and rawness on the inside. But that is definitely not, that's not, I've never seen anybody do that. So maybe that would be too high a temperature. And then there's the boiling factor, which is most of the northern part of Mexico, western part of Mexico. And they just put it in water and you can't do a too high of a temperature there. So I guess maybe it's just if you were to roast or broil at too high a temperature or perhaps too close to the broiler, you would get bitterness from just burning on the outside and not have them cooked on the inside. Um, okay, our next question here is from Rocky Acosta. Hi, Rick. What is a good source for traditional Mexican pottery cookware? I'm concerned that some may be represented as food safe, but are not. Do you have a good source? I don't really have a good source to send you. I will tell you that the glazes on traditional pottery that have lead in the glazes are super clear. It's one of the things people liked about those lead glazes. And the ones that are lead free have a slight haze to them, or they have. I just was in Oaxaca a couple of weeks ago, and I was looking at some lead free glazes, and they didn't look very, what I would call milky or hazy. And everything was had written on it in a glaze, sin plomo, without lead. So I highly recommend you look for ones that actually have that written on them, sin plomo. But I will say, in terms of looking for in the pottery online, that where would I go? Mexgrocer.com has had a bunch of stuff. I haven't been on their site very recently, but I literally would just put into, you never, I'll tell you, my first stop always, and everybody will laugh at this, but is I open up my Amazon app and I would put in there Mexican pottery without lead and just see what pops up, because something may pop up and you never know when these small producers have gone on to Amazon, and it probably won't be Amazon Prime, but you could get your lead-free glazes. I haven't done that in a while, so I don't know if that's going to yield anything for you, but please go there and check. Otherwise, just go onto Google and look for it that way. My next question here is from from Belinda Serrano. Hello from Oklahoma City. I would like your opinion on what you think makes the best peppers for baking chocolate cake. Okay, well, that's out of left field because most people don't put peppers into chocolate cake, but I have. And I actually have an answer to that. I actually have two answers for that. So, chocolate and green chili are not a match made in heaven to me. So, I would never say chop up a jalapeno and put it in your chocolate cake. However, ancho chiles are really good. Ancho and chocolate are like a match made in heaven. If you want some, anchos are quite sweet. And remember, dried pepper, dried chile is a dried fruit. So you will always get fruity notes out of that. Now, when you buy that little jar at your grocery store of ancho powder, it is not toasted and it is not necessarily fresh. So, if you really want to do this thing, then I suggest you buy the ancho chile pods, take out the stems and seeds, then toast them on an ungreased skillet until they fill the kitchen with a beautiful aroma. Cool them off completely, and then toast them a little extra so that they get crispy, and then put them into a spice grinder and grind your own powder out of them. I have also done that same thing by putting them in like a 300-degree oven and toasting them there, and they will get a little bit more uniformly crisp when they cool down. It takes 10 to 15 minutes, something like that. The other chili that I would say is the black pasilla chili, the one that is oftentimes called pasilla negro or pasilla largo, to not confuse it with other pasilla chilies in Mexico. And I would do the same thing with that. Now, that's a darker, more bitter chocolate flavor. That flavor of pasilla always reminds me of bitter chocolate, sort of crossed with a sort of tobacco-like flavor, which I think is just absolutely delicious. It'll make your chocolate cake taste really, really distinctive and beautiful. Pool Fox asks, Rick, what is the difference between Zapotec and Mixtec, Oaxacan mole? Well, you'd have to trail that really back because there's not just one Oaxacan mole and there's not just one Mixtec mole. So the two major indigenous groups in Oaxaca are the Zapotecs and the Mixtecs. Mixtecs are more in the northern part of the state. Zapotecs are central and southern, though we have to just keep in mind that through history, the Mixtecs were the predominant group, and then the Zapotecs came in, and then the conquest happened, and so we think of the Zapotecs as the predominant group there. But before that, the Mixtecs were more in charge than the Zapotecs. However, you couldn't really say that there's one main difference. So you would have to go back to whatever is the small town of those Mixtecs and their mole to get to that. The one thing I will tell you is if you go to Oaxaca and you stay in the main city of Oaxaca and you eat all of your meals at restaurants in the main city, what you're getting is city cuisine. And when you go out to the small villages that are all through the three valleys that intersect there at the capital city, when you get to those small towns and you eat in those small towns and you order the mole, it's going to be lighter and simpler than the one in the main town. That is generalization. That usually is the case. So I say that the small town cuisine tends to be more indigenous, is simpler, and less. They would say condimentado in Spanish. It doesn't have as much complex spicing as what you'll find in the downtown restaurants in Oaxaca. But other than that, I can't give you any generalizations for Zapotec versus Mixtec moles. PSI Flash asks, is bacanora the next mezcal? No, Sotol is the next mezcal. And you will laugh because the plant that makes Sotol in northern Mexico. Both of these, bacanora and Sotol, come from the northern part of Mexico. But the plant that makes Sotol has just been not just, but has recently been declassified out of the agave family. But I am being rebellious, and I am still calling Sotol an agave spirit, even though it has been declassified from the agave family and so shouldn't be called an agave spirit. Bacanora, however, is made from an agave plant. So I don't know. Maybe you're exactly right. Maybe we shouldn't say that Sotol, which is like one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, is not going to be the next mezcal, but it should be Bacanora, because Sotol really isn't, I guess, an agave spirit. Okay, so I'm going to go on here to Trainer in Training asks, how do you stay so fit and lean? Probably a good portion of it is the fact that my genes are my genes. And so, that's who I am. Second reason, I'm super active, and I'm not a person that sits around much. And so I keep doing lots of things. I am really into physical things. I do yoga almost every day. I do Pilates twice a week. I do weight training 2 or 3 times a week. I am really into the gymnastic side of physical things, and I love doing all that kind of things as I can. I'm coming back from shoulder surgery a couple years ago, and I can't do all the stuff I used to do, but I'm very physical. And, a lot of people think of exercise as something that they have to do. I'm the guy that just can't wait to get to the gym or to the yoga studio or to the Pilates studio. And I just want to tackle something new. And I love being in my body. I love feeling what it's like to go upside down. All that stuff is just super fun to me. So whenever I go to do any of the physical activities that I do, I call it going to play, because even though I'm serious about it all, it's like my play, and I love it very much. The third thing that I will say is I eat really good food. I don't ever really eat processed food, fast food, sodas, any of that kind of stuff. But I don't do it because I'm looking down at it. And if you tell me that one of your favorite things in the world is McDonald's French fries, more power to you. I am happy if food makes you happy. And all I can say is those things don't make me happy. And so why should I follow down that path? I am one of those people that just loves eating food that's made from scratch. To me, it's just great stuff. And so I wouldn't fill myself up with something that doesn't make me happy. Jeremy Zimmerman says, do you ever make it to New Mexico? Can you get some New Mexican recipes from you? I'm a native here and love your work, and I'm bow down to you. Beautiful stuff there. It's so distinctive, and it's not like the food in Mexico, but it shares a whole pantry with Mexico, but it's executed in a different way. Now, to answer your question, I will say I love visiting there. It doesn't call me like the food of Oaxaca or Yucatan or Michoacan. And I don't get to be in those places enough. So that's where I go to all the time. So all I can say is probably I won't be sort of turning my gaze to New Mexico, but man, I love it when I go there. I love the flavors. They're so distinctive, and they're so different than the food that I normally do in central and southern Mexico. But keep doing it, man, because it's delicious stuff. Um, my laughing pig says, I would like to have a laughing pig right now. What are you making for Thanksgiving? Okay, so I'm like one of those weird traditionalists. And so I always make exactly the same thing, just maybe a little variation in it from time to time. I like to start Thanksgiving dinner with a soup, okay? And so the reason that I like to do it is because it draws out the meal. I hate it when you've spent days making this meal. Everybody goes through a buffet line and they finish their plate of food and then they're all off doing something else. That's not enough time around the table for me. So I always start with a soup and I bring everybody together and let's spend some time enjoying this soup and talking about what we're thankful for, or what brings us together, or whatever is meaningful to you, whatever, just take some time around the table. Second thing is that I always make a smoked turkey because I grew up in a barbecue restaurant. Lots of you know that. And so we always made smoked turkeys for people's Thanksgiving dinner. And that was one of my jobs growing up, was making those smoked turkeys. And I love it. It's just my thing. I brine my turkey, then I do my slow smoke on it with hickory because that's what we used in my family restaurant growing up. And I grew up in Oklahoma, like I told you a few minutes ago. So I do cornbread dressing because I love that stuff. Mashed potatoes. Part of my family's, my wife's and my daughter's and my traditions is to do green beans with caramelized onions that are done with red wine and balsamic vinegar, because we all love that. And we came back from a trip to Italy once, and we had tasted those, and they became part of our Thanksgiving dinner and never turned back. I do a cranberry relish that has chipotle and little small dice of jicama in it. I love that stuff. Oh, I didn't tell you what my soup is. So my soup is always wild mushrooms because there's so many wild mushrooms at the time of our Thanksgiving here. So I do one that usually is butternut squash that I have grown in our garden, and then wild mushrooms, and pretty straightforward, simple European style, but I like that. And then I am a big pumpkin pie fan. And my mother always made an apple cake, so I always make this apple cake. And then other people that come often bring other desserts to that. Rick Campbell asks, good evening, Mr. Rick. What is your favorite queso in Mexico? I have two that I could just throw out right away, though there are some amazing ones. But I'm going to go the traditional route because there are a lot of good cheesemakers in Mexico now that are doing all kinds of gorgeous goat cheeses and camembert style cheeses. And just when I was there in the Baja region, every place, every winery we stopped at had these gorgeous cheeses from over in in Querétaro, from Querétaro region, where there's a lot of cheese making going on. But I'm going to tell you two of my favorite ones that are very traditional cheeses. And the number one would be quesillo from Oaxaca. You all have probably heard it called queso Oaxaca. That's not its name. There's a lot of Oaxacan cheeses, so don't call it queso Oaxaca, although you would probably buy it as queso Oaxaca. But it is a type of a cross between like a mozzarella and a string cheese, but it's made with a fermented curd. And so it has this really rich flavor. And I've made it with people in Oaxaca a number of times. It's a really, really fascinating process that they use. But they pull it, okay, just like you would a mozzarella. And they pull it and then they roll it into balls. And if you go into the Oaxaca market, downtown Oaxaca market, you can ask for the version of that's doble crema, double cream version of that, and it will blow your mind. I just love that stuff. And by the way, if you bring a big, like a 1 kilo ball of it back, just divide it up. Hopefully you have a vacuum sealer so you can divide it and then put it in the freezer. It freezes beautifully. And the second thing is the doble crema cheese, using those words again, doble crema, but the one from Chiapas that is sold unrefrigerated and in small bricks. And that stuff is just dynamic as all get out. It's a cow's milk. Both of these are cow's milk cheeses, and I love them both. They're so good. But a little of the doble crema from Chiapas goes a long, long way. So it's just a little bit of a garnishing cheese there. Okay, now we have ML. We're coming down to our final moments here. So ML asks, "Hi Rick, what is a Mexican ingredient that is really good, but you think most Americans haven't tried yet?" Without a doubt, Hoja Santa, the large heart-shaped leaf it grows wild in South Texas, and there it's called root beer plant because it has a sort of sarsaparilla-like flavor bordering on anisey. Its stuff is just so dynamic and beautiful, used all through the southern part of Mexico and over into the Yucatan. In central and southern Mexico, except in Oaxaca, it's typically called Hoja Santa, saintly leaf. In Oaxaca, it's called Hierba Santa, saintly herb. Over in the state of Veracruz, it's called acuyo. In the state of Guerrero, it's typically called momo. It goes by lots of different names in a lot of different places. But I will say that is such a great herb. We can't buy it easily on the open market here, and so I grow it. And like right now at my house, I think I have about 67 plants of it. We will bring a lot of that into our greenhouse. But man, that stuff is just dynamic, and I really, really love that. Dawn, I'm going to say Bensi or Benz. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Sorry there, Dawn. Asks, what's something you would do with leftover rotisserie chicken? Oh, really quick. I'm really hungry right now, so this is the first thing that came to my mind. So I would roast some poblanos. While they're roasting, I would caramelize some onions. The fast caramelization, not slow caramelization like for a French onion soup. I would cut the roasted poblanos into strips, add some creme fraiche, Mexican crema, to the pan and let that cook down until it coats the roasted peppers and the onions really well. Tear up that rotisserie chicken, throw it in the pan, and heat up some tortillas and make some of the best tacos you could ever make. That's a great thing to do with rotisserie chicken. Mike asks thoughts on Michelin stars and their impact on the restaurant industry. I would say that they haven't been much in the focus of U.S. restaurants until now. Yes, in New York, which tends to be much more oriented toward Europe, a big deal to get a Michelin star. In the Midwest, in the West, it was great, but our vision turns in another direction. And I will say that we've always been much more oriented toward James Beard Awards than to Michelin stars. And now that the James Beard Foundation has turned its gaze a little bit different, which I applaud. I think it's great. Nowadays, people are talking a little bit more about Michelin stars than they are about Beard Awards. I will go for both of them, but I will tell you, when I get the wonderful opportunity to travel to Europe and I tell somebody I've got a Michelin star restaurant, I'm the chef of a Michelin starred restaurant in Europe, man, it is everything. And so they will really bow down to me. And I think, oh, why are you treating me that way? It's not that big a deal. But in Europe, it's a big deal. It's still a big deal. But it is gaining in its focus, I think, a little bit more now. And because Michelin has come in and now more cities have Michelin ratings for their cities, it's becoming a bigger deal. And I think that's good. I think it's always wonderful. You can debate it all, and it's never going to be perfect. And somebody will say, "I can't believe that one got a Michelin star, and this one that's better over here didn't get it." There's probably some kind of politics that go on it, although they never tell us what the criterion is for a Michelin star, other than worth a detour. But I will say that still, I believe that having prizes like that is a good thing because it gives us all something to go for. Before we had any, remember, before we had Michelin stars in the United States, I think I can say this for real, we had the Beard Awards. And so that was, I was like, that when we started having the Beard Awards, things changed drastically in the United States because people had something to reach for. And the quality of food all through the United States became better and better. And that's one of the roles of having these award programs. So whether you like them or not, I think they make the food in our towns better. And when the Beard Awards started, man, there was nothing that was at the sort of the highest level in a lot of smaller cities in the United States. But now that there's Beard Awards coming from all over the United States and they're really focusing on more out of the way towns, it's like everybody has the opportunity to be considered. And so everybody is trying their very best and everybody's looking, well, now for at least the mention for where you put on the list, because that says people are noticing you and you're doing something that's really important. And I say keep that up. That is to me a really important thing. I have seen in my almost 4 decades of being a chef in the United States, of my own place, I can say that I have seen the quality of food just go through the roof in the United States because we all have something to reach for. And for somebody like me that's been doing it for a long time, I can say that it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me wanting to push further and to do better and better in our restaurants, because I know that people that are coming from Milwaukee and St. Louis and Madison and Indianapolis and Detroit to Chicago, they're going to expect something better here than what they can get at home. And the truth of the matter is sometimes they can't find it, because they have such good restaurants in those markets, whereas maybe 15, 20 years ago, they might not have had something that good in their markets. And so they would come to Chicago for their wonderful culinary weekends. But thankfully now they have that, but it just makes me say, we got to do better. We got to be forging new frontiers. So with that, I'm going to leave all of you. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks for all the people that are here. I love being able to do this and to interact with you and to answer some of your questions. We're going to have to do it again soon. I always say we should be doing another cook along. We haven't done a cook along for a while, but we'll try to work in one maybe before the end of the year so that we could do that kind of thing together, because I know you guys really like it and it's fun for me too. But time has not been in abundance for me to do those kind of things. But anyway, thank you all so much for being here. It's been a real pleasure, and I wish you all the best.